From late tomorrow night, travelers into Singapore who exhibit COVID-19 symptoms may be given swab tests, even if they don't meet the definition of a suspect case. Border control measures have also been tightened and will include recent travelers from virus hotspots like South Korea, Iran and northern Italy. And authorities have warned of a need to prepare for spikes in cases as the virus continues to spread quickly around the world.
From Wednesday, travelers coming into Singapore who have a fever and other respiratory symptoms may need to do a swab test at checkpoints. This is even though they do not meet the definition of what constitutes a clinical suspect case, which has since been expanded to include persons with pneumonia or severe respiratory infection with breathlessness and who have been to Iran, northern Italy, Japan and South Korea within 14 days before onset of symptoms. They may continue their journey after the test, as results may take between 3 and 6 hours, but are advised to minimize contact with others during this time. Those who test positive and are still in Singapore will be contacted and sent to hospital in a dedicated ambulance. All new visitors with recent travel history to Iran, northern Italy and South Korea will not be allowed into Singapore. Singapore citizens and residents returning home from these places will be subject to a 14-day stay-home notice. As of now, Japan has not been included in this latest round of travel restrictions. The two new measures are to limit the risk that these affected regions may pose to Singapore.
Border controls are still useful at this stage of the epidemic because we can still identify where the sources of risk are, and then we can take appropriate measures to reduce the risk from these infected sources. And by doing so, we flatten the epidemic curve in Singapore, we buy ourselves time, and then we avoid a situation where our hospitals get overwhelmed by a sudden surge of cases. So this is useful, but we have to be prepared that at some stage, the border controls alone will not be sufficient.
Mr. Wong noted that Singapore cannot totally shut itself off from the rest of the world, even as more new cases surface elsewhere. Singapore will be exposed to new waves of infection and must be prepared to deal with this.
We've been used to a certain increase in cases day by day, and I think every report that comes out, you see a handful, but it may not be always like that. And if there is an incident that sparks a sudden increase, that spike will be an order of magnitude different from what we have been used to. That has been the experience in some of these countries. So we cannot be complacent.
Singapore will redouble its efforts within the country, and the government will keep putting in resources to detect and isolate all cases of infection. Authorities have also urged individuals to make practices such as regular hand washing and staying home when unwell a permanent part of daily life.